Hi, this is John again for 5S Warehouse. In this video, we are going to cover some of the design basics, some of the design tools that are built into our Customize It software so that you can get the most out of the design that you're creating. A lot of these tools that we've built in work very similar to other graphic design programs that you've used in the past, with some exceptions, but I'm going to take you through that and show you how to use it. If you haven't watched our introductory video up at the top of the Customize It page, go ahead and do that first because we're going to jump right in and we're not going to cover some things that were covered in the overview video, just so you can get an idea of how the software works overall before you jump into the details here. So let's jump right into the software. I'm going to pick a square shape here on the floor signs page. We're here on our product detail page. We're going to go ahead and hit the customize button and jump right in. So the first thing of note that pops up is the sort of a warning or just sort of a message that kind of shows you what you're supposed to do here. And this says the gray shape on the canvas is your sign color. Click the shape and use the contextual menu to change its color. And basically what that means is that, hey, you've got a shape here on the screen and you want to change the background for it. There's an easy way to do that. You just click on the shape, click on this fill icon right here, and change it to whatever background color you want. Right? So that's kind of the very first thing you're going to get anytime that you jump into one of our Customize It products. So it's kind of the first thing you want to look at and decide how you want your background color to look. So from there, let's kind of do an overview of all the graphic design tools you have available to you here. So the first thing that shows up is the images palette over here on the left-hand side. We have a number of icons that are pre-done and pre-designed just for the type of signs that you would be producing. We started off with the arrows here. Of course, arrows would make a whole lot of sense in directional signs. You could add an arrow to the screen and do all sorts of stuff with it. You can make it different colors here with the color palette. If you want to make it white. And one of the things you get when you are working with images here on the color palette, or on the canvas, I should say, is when you click on an image, you get these various tools and overlays that are going to help you manipulate this image in the best way that you can. So the first thing we'll notice here is that you get handles all along the edge of the image. And what this helps you do is it helps you resize the image. So if I just click and drag on a handle here, I'm going to start from the lower right-hand corner. Of course, you could start from anywhere though. But if you click and drag, you don't press any keys, just use your mouse here, and you can click and drag to make this arrow as big or as small or as big as you want. You can drag it even off the screen to make it super big. And of course, this never loses quality here. This is a shape. So that's the first thing you can do to help make your icons that show up on screen, resize them and manipulate them however you want. The other thing I can do is, while clicking and dragging on this handle here, is if I push down the shift key, you can actually squish it or scale it up to kind of any dimension that you want. If I let go of the shift key, it takes it back into just the standard size where it will just scale it by percentage. Holding the shift key will allow you to squish it. So that's another handy little tip if you do need to squish something. Sometimes it does come in handy. Another useful tool is this round icon at the top of the handles here. That's actually above the handles. It's a rotation tool. You'll notice that when you roll over this little icon here, it will turn into a crosshair icon. What you're going to do is you click and drag in sort of a clockwise or counterclockwise motion. And what this will do is rotate the image however you see fit. So you can see how it would be useful here for the arrows. When you begin to drag, you can actually turn it and make it an up arrow at that point, or move it around and make it a right arrow, or keep going, make it a down arrow, or keep going, and return it back to the left arrow that we had when we started. So you can do this with any image. It doesn't have to be an arrow. It could be any image at all to rotate it. If you had a logo and it was up in the corner here, you could use the rotation tool to make it fit nicely up into this corner, something like that. I'm going to use the undo icon up here to return back to where I was before. And another thing that you can do, in addition to the images here, every image that is placed on the canvas is put into a layer. And if you imagine a stack of papers on top of each other, it's kind of the similar idea. So for every image I add is a new layer of paper, using that metaphor, on top of what we already have here. So for instance, if I wanted to go into another safety icon area, let's add the truck here. And you'll notice that the truck comes in over top of the arrow. Now we're not stuck with this. We can actually do a lot of stuff with this. So for instance, let's make the truck a different color here so we can kind of be clear on what we're doing. So the truck here actually can go underneath this arrow icon. You can see that the arrow at the moment is kind of stuck behind everything. Let's say we want the arrow to be on top. Well, we can do that here by one of two different ways. One thing we can do is click on this icon here that looks like a stack of paper, and it gives us some arrows here, and what these are going to do is move the layers up and down. So here in the middle we have the down and the up arrow. The down arrow moves it down a layer, the up arrow moves it up a layer, and then these outer icons here, the double arrow pointing down moves it all the way to the back, and the double arrow pointing up moves it all the way to the front. All right, so I can show you how those will be useful here. So if we want to move this down a layer, this truck is currently selected, we're going to hit the down arrow and it will move it one layer back, which brings the arrow up on top. And now the arrow is on top of everything. And now similarly, if we have the arrow on top of everything here, we can hit this stack of paper icon again, hit the down arrow, and it will then go behind the truck. Select the arrow again, hit the up arrow, and it will bring it back up to the front. So if you have many images on the screen and they overlap in certain ways, this is how you would control what the order of them would be. And then just to add a little bit more to the mix here, we can add another icon to the page. And in this case, now that we've got 3 icons on the page, we've got 3 layers. Right? So the icon that we just put in here is on top of everything. You can see me moving around, it's on top of everything. When I hit the stack of papers here, it's going to move for the down arrow here, it's going to move one layer behind. Hit it again, and it'll move completely behind everything. So now that black icon is completely beneath all of the graphics that we have up on screen here. And of course, you can play around with this all day. I'm selecting the truck right now. You can move it down below everything or move it back up above everything. And again, the layers just kind of work in a singular fashion. You can go one up, one down, 2 up, 2 down, whatever works for you. All right. So that kind of gives you a basic idea of layers. Of course, layers would work with images too. Basically, anything you can select on screen counts as a layer. So if you were to add some text here and you wanted it behind something, you could do that. Or if you wanted something on top of something else, you could use the layers palette there. So that will give you kind of a broad overview of the of layers and how images work on the screen. Of course, any of these images here you can do anything with. You can remove these images if you want using the trash can icon here. You can copy and paste just like you would anything else. We'll pick another icon here, and of course you can go in and change the icon's color. As I covered in the previous video, you can actually do a lot of custom colors here. We just present the most standard colors that we use here at 5S Warehouse. We have another broader set of colors here that could work for your needs. And you could scroll through this and get whatever you want. We also have grayscale colors that kind of go by percentages. White would be 0% of black, and you can go up from here. That's 5%, 10%. Actually, I think it's a little bit more granular than that. But you can get real detailed with the color of gray that you want to put in here. Of course, at the very bottom would be stark black. Now, if you wanted a completely custom color, you can use this little paint color palette here and open up the color window. And if you move around inside the shade window here, you can create any shade of color you want. And of course, out here on the color wheel outside of the internal color palette, you can move all the way around clockwise, counterclockwise, and create any shade of color you want for this image. So say we wanted yellow, we've got a nice bright yellow color here. And there we go. Of course, we can use undo and redo to do all sorts of interesting stuff here. Now, what undo is trying to do right now is go through all the various shades of yellow that I went through. And if I'm clicking the mouse button a number of times, and it will actually go through all the shades of yellow. But I did so many of them, it's kind of going to miss that. But so we can delete this icon here, and say, for instance, I add this icon to the screen. Maybe I make him smaller, move him over here. We can use the undo icon to put him back where he was and put him bigger, or to delete him completely. And we can redo all of those actions kind of in a timeline. So it's very useful to have if you're trying things out and undoing them, redoing them. Very useful. The next thing we're going to cover is we have icons that we're putting on the screen, but what if you want your own logo or your own graphics that aren't included in our pre-done set here? Well, that's easy too. If we go over here into the left sidebar and the upload icon, you get an area here. We already uploaded a 5S icon or logo in the previous step. But what you can do, I'm going to cover some image formats here real quick, and hopefully you can understand kind of how this works. If image formats are not your thing and you're confused by the terminology here, it's perfectly okay. You can ask your advertising or marketing person or someone who works on graphic design for you to provide any of these image formats for you here. It's very easy for them to create them. It would be very simple for them to send you something that will work with this customizer. So what we'll go through here is a couple of formats. So the first thing we'll do is we'll hit upload your artwork here, and it's going to bring up our panel here that has all of our images listed here. So there's a couple different formats that we have for logos, and some of them work better than others. So by far the absolute best image format for a logo, for your own custom logo, is going to be SVG. And the reason for that is that SVG is a vector format that works really nicely on the web. There are other vector formats such as EPS or AI that are not going to work. They kind of, you can preview them on the customizer, but when they go to print, they produce unexpected results. And we've tested this internally here, and we think by far the best format for images in the customizer is SVG. Now, of course, you can use JPEG and PNG images too, but you want to make sure that those are very high quality, at least 300 dpi in the settings for these images. And that's just one of those things that a graphic design person will be able to create for you. It's really very simple for them. So let's take you through just a couple of examples here. I'm going to put a JPEG on the screen first of all, just to show you some differences here. So we're going to add a JPEG, and it uploads here. And if I click on it, it shows up in the center of the screen. Make that a little bit smaller here. Now, a JPEG image does not allow for transparency. And transparency would mean that if you see where the white background here is on this image, it doesn't allow whatever's in the background to show through. So if I change the background here, probably be a good idea. Let's actually just make this kind of a light gray color. And So again, you can see that the background color of the sign in this case is not going to show through the logo, which in a lot of cases people are going to, most people would want that. So we can move over to another image format for this logo that I have it saved in called PNG. PNG does support transparency. So I'm going to put this on the screen here. First it uploads, and then you click on it to add it. So you can see in this case, the PNG version of the image does have transparency, which it allows the background of whatever you're placing it on top of to show through. So a PNG image could be good in this case. But again, what we like to provide, or what we like to suggest, is an SVG. And the reason for that is that an SVG is a completely vector-based format. And what I mean by vector, I can show you an example here. Oops, I added it twice. Here we go. All right. So the image on the bottom is an SVG file, and it's also a vector file. So let me show you the differences here. First, I'm going to delete one of these. Let's delete this one. Now, if we make this image, I'll scroll this down here. The PNG version of the image, I'm going to make this bigger. And you can see on your screen, as I make this bigger, that eventually you're going to see some pixelation and some blurriness here. I'm going to keep making this bigger here. Now, once you see on the edges of the screen here, you can probably see that these edges start to get very blurry. And in some cases, it's hard to see. A lot of times people will bring images in from their website, which is just way too small for printing purposes. If you see that edge there, it is very blurry, and you're going to see that on a printed piece, and that's not the kind of thing that we want on a printed piece, because it's going to look blurry. So if we delete that and we use this vector image here, this SVG image, we can make this bigger and bigger, and you'll be able to see that the edge itself never loses any quality, and that's why we prefer vector images in this case. You can see that the quality here is so much better and so much cleaner, because it's just a shape and it's not it's not pixelated here. So again, an SVG file is going to be your best bet. All right, so we'll delete that and we'll start with a fresh canvas here. The next thing I want to cover is the text tool. So up here on the top we have the text icon. We're going to add a new text to the canvas, so we click the button and then we click the canvas to add new text. So click right here, and there's our text on the screen here. Comes in by default as orange, but you can make it whatever color you want. Let's go in here and maybe make it a red color. Very easy to do. And there's lots of choices here, whether it be fonts, bold, italic, underline, alignment of the text, lots of different things that we can do here. So the first thing, let's look at our fonts, and we have a lot of fonts built in here. Probably there would be a font for every choice here, I would think. So let's just use something like Stencil. And Stencil, I believe, is capitals by default. So maybe we'll do something else here, something that's a little that gives you upper and lowercase text. So we've chosen Rockwell, and anytime you're in this text area here, there's a menu that comes down that you can click back to. See that arrow? You can click back to that, and on your fonts, this little arrow lets you click back to the beginning as well. So what we'll do is we're going to make a multi-line bit of text here. Click off of that here. And one of the things that you can do is obviously you can make it a lot bigger here with these handles. Imagine that if you have text that is multi-line and has a lot of different spacing in here, maybe you want this to be centered. So what you can actually do is select all of it, and using the alignment icons here, you can either center it or align it to the right. within that text box. Very easy to do. You can do bold text, do italic text, you can underline it, or none of those. Again, we can change the color to whatever we want here. We have our preset colors as well if you wanted to use that. So we've got a green text here. One of the other things that you can do is, you're not limited to a single text box. You can do lots of different stuff here. So obviously we can make this as big as you want, all the way out here, or as small as we want. And of course we could just keep going here, and we can add a whole new text to the canvas and select it here. We could even rotate it. That's up to you. And of course we could pick a totally different font. We'll use this bazooka text. And we'll maybe make it a red color. And of course we can make this bigger. And again, we could use our layers that we learned from the previous little action here. If you wanted the green text to be over top of the red text, you could do that simply by selecting it, choosing the layer icon here, and moving it up to the front. So now the green text is in front. Now, obviously, this is not a great design, but it should hopefully give you an idea of how all of this works. There's lots of different things you can do here. You can rotate any text at any time. You can use your layers. You can resize anything at any time. Just by grabbing these handles and just by using your layers and the various tools that are in here. All right. So the last thing that I'm going to mention real quick here is the Facebook and Instagram icons. Now, just for security purposes, I'm not going to log into my own Facebook account or my own Instagram account. But what you can do is when you log in, you can click this button and actually log into Facebook there. And what it'll do is it'll pull in any of the images that you have added to Facebook. So whether it be photos or graphics or anything that you're considering there, it will bring those JPEG images here into your screen so that you can add them to your canvas. Now, I don't know how often that would be that you would want to use images from Facebook, but it is possible if you wanted to add it there. Same thing with Instagram. You just log into Instagram using your credentials here, and it will again bring in all your photos from Instagram right into this list that you can add to your screen, just like we did with the icons and the logos. All right, so that's kind of a basic overview of the graphic design tools here in the Customize It software. If there's something you don't understand or if there's something that you need, please let us know. I'm going to cancel out of this here. And if you just want to hit this Contact Us link right here to write us a note, or you can call us at the number here in the upper left-hand corner. We'd be glad to help you out. If there's something you're just stuck with, we'd be absolutely glad to help you out. So thank you. Have a good day.